What's up, family? It's your boy, Mike the Pilot, your favorite pilot, coming to you on a Friday afternoon. Hey, y'all, I got a lot to cover, and I got a short time to do it, because if I try to spend time covering everything I want to cover, it's going to take me about an hour, and I know folks ain't going to watch a video for an hour, so I think 30 minutes is pushing it. But anyway, let me get started. So first of all, I want to wish you a happy Friday. Happy Friday to everybody out there. Hope you are being safe. I see my guy out there, Joe Gary. Hope you're doing well, man. I need to rap to you, man, because I need to see how Micah's doing with his flying. Keep it moving. Couple things I want to talk about at the onset here, and I'm just going to jump right into it. So, in my 50 plus years of living, I have had the benefit and the honor of being influenced by many people in my life. First and foremost, my parents, and then my immediate family, and then my extended family. But then I've also had the honor and privilege to sit under some of the most brightest people that I've ever met, and dare I say, some of the brightest people that this country has ever produced. And it's nothing that I've done. It's just the people that God has put me in their path and put them in my path. So based on that, I believe in giving folks their flowers while they can smell them. And I want to take about 2 minutes to pay a special tribute and homage to, to a gentleman who has had a very significant impact in my life indirectly. I don't think he even knows this. I met him one time about 20 years ago at least. And I met him through some other good folks. I see Maxine watching. Hey, Maxine. And I'm going to stop trying to do that, because I think when I try to stop and address people, I get confused. But anyway, just like I just did. Okay, so I met this gentleman about 20 years ago through some other friends, particularly the founder of Dudley Products, Dr. Joel Dudley Sr., and one of his right-hand men, John Ray Smith. I met this brother through these two gentlemen, and I met a bunch of good folks through those two gentlemen. But this gentleman I'm referring to is a brother by the name of George C. Frazier, Dr. George C. Frazier, out of Cleveland, Ohio. And just Google him. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about George, but I just want to talk about the impact that George has had in my life without him really knowing it. And I know he knows that he's had a profound impact on a lot of folks' lives throughout his 75 years of living, plus the 40 years of entrepreneurship, corporate experience. Just Google this brother. He's one of the baddest brothers I ever met in my life. I heard George speak, again, 20 years ago, and it was just the one time I heard him speak in person. And I still have that audio cassette, by the way. And he just made a significant impact. Now, why am I saying this? Because some of the things, I've been watching a lot of George's videos here as of late. And a lot of things that George has been saying has reminded me of some of the things that I need to be doing to stay on point, okay? And one of those things is, and he didn't speak to this about this specifically, but this is some of the things I drew from some of the videos I've been watching on him. But one of the things I've really picked up on is my messaging when it comes to social media. Now, I want to talk briefly about what is your social media strategy, and I want to talk very briefly about what my social media strategy is going to be going forward. I spoke with a good friend of mine. Well, I say good friend, and I consider him a good. I'm talking fast because I'm trying to get through this, so y'all pardon me. But I consider him a good friend, even though we've never personally met. In other words, I met this brother through social media. We've conversed on the phone. We made some attempts to try to connect up in Maryland back during the holidays. That sort of fell through no fault of each of ours own, just circumstances beyond each of ours control. I'm going to call this guy Frank, okay? But, me and Frank were talking yesterday, and, I asked him, I said, man, let me ask you a question. I said, based on what you see me post out there in the cyber world, what is your impression? What kind of impression do you get of who I am and what I'm all about? And he gave me about 4 or 5 bullet points that pretty much was right in line with what I tried to put out. And the reason I share that is because you got to be real careful about your messaging, and particularly, what you're trying to send out, who you're trying to reach. Okay? And this is very poignant for people that are in business, entrepreneurs. If you have a business and you're trying to communicate information about your business, you want to make sure you are very on point with doing that. And the term I want to use is an old television term. Used to be television, and television, well, still they call it broadcasting. Okay. Well, when the cable channels started going to they went from 13 channels. Remember back in the day we had the rabbit ears, you could get maybe a handful of channels. And then they started going to cable television and you could get, 186 channels. They call that narrowcasting. Okay. In other words, if you want to watch information about history, you watch the History Channel. You're not going to find the History Channel doing a whole lot of programming on the weather. If you want to watch information about the weather, then you go where? To the Weather Channel. If you want to watch 24-hour news, you go where? CNN. This is narrowcasting. And this is where the television networks started saying, listen, rather than doing a bunch of broadcasting, let's narrow our casting to specific target audiences. Okay? And that's what I want to do with my social media strategy going forward. And that's what I encourage you to do. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to share some points that I sort of jotted down about doing that. Okay? So, let me tell you why I even got involved in social media. I initially became involved in social media through a tragic circumstance. I think it was about 7 years ago. My first cousin, Christopher Kearney, was killed in a tragic car accident. And that loss of Christopher rocked our family on my mother's side. I mean, it literally rocked our family to the foundation. I remember my uncle saying he had never heard my grandmother cry like that. But after the funeral, we were around my grandmother's house, and my younger cousins were all talking about this Facebook thing. And, I wasn't on Facebook, and I said, well, that's all cool and well, and that's fine, to each his own. I really looked at it as a younger generation thing. But then I realized that in order for me to try to maybe stay in connection with, or stay in touch with my younger cousins and family for that matter, maybe I should just go ahead and open up a Facebook account. And actually, real specifically, here's how I really got involved in social media. I was teaching some computer classes, and I was teaching mainly elderly folks that wanted to learn how to use computers. And about a month after I had conducted a class, one of my students sent me an email and said, the email said, such and such would like you to see her photos. Okay. And I was like, wow, check out my student. She's doing the whole social media thing. Well, I went to try to look at her photos. And in order to look at the photos, I had to create an account. So I said, okay, let me just do this since my cousins were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago. I need to go ahead and do this anyway. And I did it. Well, after that, it was just, Katie barred the door, So that's how I initially got involved in social media. But as I became more and more involved, I realized the tremendous importance of it as far as communicating what you'd like to communicate. Okay, so it's a very powerful tool. You can abuse it just like any other tool, but you can also properly utilize it. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is to properly utilize social media, the social media platform. So right now, going from 7 years ago to just really stumbling into Facebook, I now have a Facebook account, Twitter. I have an Instagram account, which I just really started doing, YouTube channel, and a couple of websites I got out there. So let me get into this. I got some notes. Now, I normally don't speak from notes, and this is the reason why, because I'm normally more fluid when I can just speak from my heart. But I'm referring to some notes I sort of jotted down. So I want to talk to you about my social media strategy going forward. going forward, well, first I want to give you this. Let me do this first. Let me give you a couple of nuggets as far as advice on what you should do, even if you are just a casual user of social media. One of the things I would encourage you to do is to clearly define why you are using social media. Now, when I say this, I want to put this little caveat in. Years ago, one of my mentors, same mentor that introduced me to George Frazier, by the way, Dr. Joe Dudley, we used to have these weekly meetings and networking sessions. And I'll never forget, Mr. Dudley would always talk about just being completely honest with yourself, because the last person you can lie to is yourself. So no matter what the reason is as to why you are doing things, always be completely honest with yourself, even if it's a selfish reason. Okay, and I don't want to give you the example he gave us, because I mean he puts that out there on his own, but it was just really interesting to hear him say, you know, why he wanted to buy a $10 million mansion. You know, it was just really interesting to see to hear why he wanted to buy that mansion, and he was completely honest about why he bought it. I'm not going to tell you the reason why, because that's his business, and not for me to put out. But what I got from that was just, wow, this guy is just tremendously honest about his motives and intentions with himself, okay, first, and then with other people, secondly. So I want you to do the same thing. I want you to be completely honest about why you want to use social media. If it's just because everybody else is doing it, okay, then let that be the case. If it's because, well, I want the attention, then say that. Say, I want and I need attention, and I gotta have it, and this is the easiest way I can get it, okay? That's not, by the way, the reason I do it, okay? I clearly know why, and well, I'll go ahead and tell you. The reason why, well, I actually told you, the reason why I initially got into social media is to really keep in touch with my family. You know, as time went on and I started experiencing some health issues, before I actually communicated it to my family, I sat on it for a number of years. But then when I realized it was time for me to start communicating that to my family, I wanted to use a method where I could get information out to all of my family at one time, pretty much, without having to talk to a whole bunch of people about what's going on and repeat myself 50, 60 times, you know, and try to get in touch with folks that are overseas and different parts of the country. I just said, look, let me just do the social media thing. I'll put stuff out about my health. My family will see it. They'll know what's going on with me. So that's a big reason why I really started doing it, you know, and then moved into why I started doing it. The reason I use it now is very simple. It's a powerful tool. You know, it's like having social media is like having your own television broadcast station. You know, I'm broadcasting right now from the world headquarters of Mike the Pilot. Okay, my home office. Okay, this is my home base. And right here from my home base in Greensboro, North Carolina, I can produce this video, and I have no idea who might watch it. I mean, it could be, and I'll be honest, I've gotten some videos that people have watched and have responded to from all over the world. I mean, and it blew me away when some people were responding from countries I didn't even know existed. You know, it's like, you know, and then countries I do know exist. But again, it's a tremendous, powerful tool when it comes to communication. So with that being said, you have to utilize it properly and utilize it smartly. Okay? So let me give you my 2020 social media strategy and review going forward. I am really going to start narrow focusing my broadcast. You know, sometimes you'll see me post things about flying, of course, my aviation career and advocacy. You'll see me post things about golfing, you know, some habits I have, you know, because I share, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you share interests with other people. You'll post things, and you know, you and your friends can sort of bounce things back between each other. Great way to learn things. I'll post things about my health. I'll also post things about some entrepreneur things that I'm doing, projects that I'm working on. And then when I really started looking at it, and this is what I would encourage you to do, go back and look at your last months of posts, your last 6 months of posts, everywhere you post on social media, and just look at what your message is. If somebody were to see your post that don't know you, what kind of message would they get? about who you are and what you're all about. Utilize your friends, ask folks, say, hey, and particularly people that don't know you very well, and maybe you just are beginning to know them, and you just got to know them, if you will. Ask them, like I did with Frank. Say, hey man, let me ask you a question. Based on what you see me post, what is your perception of who I am and what I'm all about? And listen, and just, and tell them, listen, don't spare my feelings. If I post things out there that make me look like a complete idiot, then tell me, say, Mike, you look like a complete idiot doing that, but I need to hear some honest feedback. Okay. Frank gave me some good feedback, and it was pretty much in line with what my motive and my motivation is, if you will. So going forward, here's my narrow focus. I'm only going to really post about 3 or 4 things, really. Okay. I really try to stay away from politics. I really do. There was a time when I would post things about my political views. Politics and religion are like opinions. And we know what opinions are like, right? Everybody has one. Doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just your opinion. Okay? And that's all fine and well if someone asks you, and this is just my opinion. But sometimes people don't really care about what you feel when it comes to politics. Okay? And a lot of times you get people out there that are just venting, and really it serves, to me, very little purpose. Okay? Did I give George homage? Yeah, I did. I paid George Frazier homage. I want to make sure I did that at the very beginning. Make sure y'all check this brother out. The reason I brought George's name back up again, because when I go back and look at George's social media presence, and I look at the man I met 20 years ago, he's still consistent. He's still generally talking about the very same thing that he was talking about 20 years ago, dare I say 40 years ago, before I even met him. Okay? He's very consistent with his messaging. And that's what I want to be more like. I want to be, George said this that day. I'll never forget. He says, it's okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. Okay? So I do look at George as an example a lot of times of, how to put my stuff out there and, what not to put out there and what maybe to put out there, among other people for that matter. So I'll come back to my messaging. I'm really going to focus on just really 3 to 4 things. You can't, when you start saying a handful of things, then it becomes 5, 6, 7, 8 things. And then you're back to what? Broadcasting again. Okay. But just really 3 or 4 things I'm going to really, really try to narrow my focus on when it comes to my messaging. Okay. One is going to be my ongoing, I'm going to just call it my ongoing journey regarding my health and pursuit to receive a kidney transplant and to identify and find a living donor. Okay, so you'll see me post some things periodically about my kidney transplant, okay, my health. Obviously, you'll still see me post my aviation videos, and then you'll see me posting things about mentorship and business relationships and business development, and how we do that and how we affect other people's lives in our process or in our pursuit of excellence ourselves. Okay, so you'll see me talk about those things. You'll hear about some projects that I'm working on. I'll really try to keep those limited because a lot of my projects that I work on really don't need to be broadcasted, okay, to confuse people about my messaging. But you will hear about some of the projects that I'm working on, or at least one that I know particularly of, because that's some of the feedback I got from Frank yesterday. He said, hey man, most of the time I hear you and you're talking about this, you're talking about that, and it's all right in line with what you're all about. But then once in a while I'll see you post something about this Ashe water and it throws me off, and I'm not really sure how that ties in with what you're doing. And then I had to explain to him that that's a new initiative that I'm taking on, and I'm sort of trying to slowly get the word out before I start really, really saturating the market with what I'm doing here in North and South Carolina regarding Ashe water. But you'll be hearing more about that. I'll be pushing information out about that as well, okay, because that's a business endeavor that I'm taking on, and I'm going to use this social media tool as a way to do it, okay? So really, that's all I really wanted to talk about today is give you some insight into the direction I'm heading, regarding my social media usage and messaging, and would encourage you to do the same, especially if you're really serious about the messaging you're putting out regarding your social media presence in the cyber world. Okay, so at this time I'm going to recognize some of the folks that have joined and may have left. Tony Pickard, I think is how you pronounce his name. Pickard. Donna Worley, I see you. I don't want to butcher your name, so I'm not going to try. Last name is Bryant. Maxine, I see you as well. And then all the folks that will come back and watch the video later. Watch this video maybe 1 or 2 times and let it seep in. And again, just really think about what kind of messaging you're putting out, if any, for that matter. Is it what you want to put out? Is it what you want people to receive? Or is it totally different than what your intentions are and your motivation is? Okay? So based on that, y'all, I'm going to roll out. I got to do a couple things today. It's y'all can see me. I'm in my office. I'm in my t-shirt. It's a laid back, casual day. It's casual Friday, okay, here at the World Headquarters of Mike the Pilot. I love you all. Again, y'all have a great 2020. I wanted to do this right at the beginning of the year, but I got some slight setback with my kidney donor pursuits, and I wanted to just push that out there because that's the direction God was leading me to do. Okay? So based on that, I'm going to roll out. I love you all. Peace. Y'all have a great weekend.